Getting a Medicare card, finding the right place to retire, dealing with hip replacement surgery, and battling a groundhog named Monax are just a few of the rites of passage on our next guest's road to retirement. Let's take note with Joan Creagers, writer and teacher. She is a member of the Nittany Valley Writers Network and the Pennsylvania State Coordinator for the Population Institute. Her book, Life in a Slower Lane, is published by virtualbookworm.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Your book is a wonderful collection of essays that deal with everything from clean sheets to growing up WASP to contemporary problems. Tell us a little bit about how it came to be.
Well, I like to write, and when I retired, I decided I could write what I wanted to write instead of what I had to write. I'd been writing some textbooks, and that was sort of dictated for what had to be in the book, and now I can write whatever I want to write.
In fact, you say in the book that retirement is a time when we need to fulfill lifetime dreams before we run out of a lifetime. For your husband, it was playing the piano. Was this book that lifetime
writing
dream?
was the thing for me, and this book, and I have another one I'm working on about some of my ancestors. It'll be a young adult's book called Rebecca Follows Her Dream. That's still in progress.
You, in addition, you encourage others, seniors especially, to write their life stories. In fact, you teach a course for CALL, the Community Academy for Lifelong Learning. Why do you think it's so important, especially for seniors, to write their life stories?
If they haven't done it before, time's running out, as I've pointed out before. And the thing that got me started on it was when my granddaughters were small. They're now young ladies, but when they were young, Grandma, tell me what it was like when you were a little girl, or tell me about when I was a baby, or some things like that. And I thought, well, this really ought to be written down.
And in fact, you have had a lot to write about, not only your personal experiences, but the concerns for a gay son, biracial grandchildren, population concerns. There have been so many that have been the fodder for very, very interesting essays.
Well, I think I write what I think about, and I spend a lot of time thinking about the problems we have in this world. I know I can't fix them all, but maybe I can get people to think about them.
And as a retiree, do you look at these things? It seems to me that you must look at these differently than you did before you were a retiree. For instance, you wrote a fascinating piece about being a WASP.
Yes, it had occurred to me that I was a WASP when I was growing up. We didn't even think in those terms in the 1940s and 50s. I remember my mother one time was told not to do a blackface minstrel show, and the whole town had thought this was the greatest show on earth, and nobody really understood why they shouldn't do that. I didn't at that time, and now I know.
You attended a workshop, a writers' convention in Philadelphia, and you said the person who was talking about writing memoirs gave you some good advice. Use all of your senses. Help your readers see what you see, hear what you hear, and feel what you feel. And I think you've done that in that book.
Well, that's a great compliment, because every time you go to a writers' conference, the main line is show, don't tell. And it's so easy to tell people and give your impression of something instead of explaining it so that the reader can get their impression of whatever the topic is.
And in fact, the other advice was know the times about which you write.
Oh, yes. It's very difficult when you're writing about a time for I think I used the example about Scotch tape, maybe, or when watches were invented, and people don't really know when some of these things happen. And unless you go back into old newspapers or old records, there are books about life in the 1910 era, life in the 1870s, and chapters here and there you can find. So if you want to write something about some time ago, it pays to get it correct, because somebody will know the difference.
You also write about the need to find the right place to retire, and for you and your husband, who are avid travelers, that place was not a community, a retirement community.
No, it wasn't, and it's not a great big house and a great big lot either. And we found a little place here in State College that is just the right size for us. The lawn is a little larger than we'd like, but I think we can get somebody to deal with that.
Now, outside of someone who works for the park system, You are one of the few Pennsylvanians who has visited every single state park in Pennsylvania. This is in addition to visiting 70 countries on 7 continents.
Well, that's right. When the way we got the money to do this is several of our kids that we thought we would put through college decided that wasn't for them. So we've paid some tuition here and there now and then since they said they didn't want to go to school. But we decided, well, if they don't want it, we might as well use it. So we started traveling. And the more we went, the more we wanted to go. And I think we've gotten to the place now where we've just about been everywhere we would really like to go.
And as you look back and reflect on the places you've been, what are among the most impressive places you've been?
I admired the courage of the people in Africa. They had so little to work with, and now that the AIDS epidemic has come along, they have even less. People who had next to nothing, lived in huts with dirt floors, were the most gracious people. Young man was one of the dancers in one of the areas near Nairobi, made us a little flute like he played in one of the dance ceremonies. That's a cherished possession.
And in fact, you talk about Scandinavian countries as being among the most civilized and most impressive countries.
Yes, I was particularly impressed in Stockholm. We started to get on a city bus. We always use public transportation in big cities, big foreign cities. And people simply stood in a line. No pushing and shoving. Everybody got off the bus and then everybody got on in order, and that was just a very nice way to do things. And I like that. And also in Iceland, they claim that they are the most equality-oriented society in the world. Waitresses and professional people have approximately the same income. There's no unemployment. There's no poor people. There's no exceptionally rich people, as far as I can tell. We weren't there very long, and there may be exceptions to this if you studied Iceland in great detail. But I liked that, having a kind of an equality type of civilization like that.
Now, a number of the essays, and I should add that a number of them have been award-winning, but they deal with your reflections on some of our contemporary problems, including population. You're a member of the Population Institute. Give us a little bit about what your thoughts are on that.
Well, the basic idea is we think every child should be a wanted and loved child. And that means that we don't have children unless we really do want them, and we try to help people obtain contraceptives so that they do not have to even raise the question of whether they need an abortion or not. I would favor abortion if necessary, but there's a more humane way to handle that problem too. And because Americans use so much more of the world's goods than any other country in the world, we are more to blame because any American, no matter how many of us there are, uses maybe 40 or 100 times as much of the world's goods as the poorer countries.
You talk in the book about age being both a burden and an opportunity.
Well, people think of it as a burden, but it's important to get rid of that idea. Everybody knows they're going to die someday, and we will, but there's no point in sitting in a rocking chair waiting for it to happen. It's important to look at what's left of your life and make the best of every minute there is. Whatever that, writing may not be everybody's bag, but whatever is important to you, get busy and do it.
What's interesting is I think you are one of the fortunate few who have a consuming interest. And in fact, it sounds like you and your husband have talked about how you'll spend your time when one or the other is gone.
Yes, we had a little project of the 15,000 color slides we've taken over the years. Only a few of them are really worth saving. But we've tried to figure out a way that we could save those so that whoever is left behind could look at tapes of those. And now that there is a scanner available to scan color slides, I think I may be back in business on that little project.
You also write with a sense of humor, because one of the pieces is about hip replacement surgery, and you say, so now when someone asks you how tall, you can say, standing on which leg?
Well, I do have a lift in one shoe that I don't think is terribly obvious, and a foot drop that after failed braces, I have now taken to just tying my foot up with a large shoestring, tie it around my ankle, and it manages. The orthopedist says it's pretty low tech, but if it works.
But it works. But it works. I want to give people an email address if they're interested in reading Joan Creagers' essays from Life in a Slower Lane. Check out her website. It's www.slowerlane, that's one word, .com. What has it meant for you to put these stories on paper and to share them with other people?
It's a great pleasure. There's no other way to put it. I'm just delighted to have the book out so that if anybody wants to read them, they may do so.
You write about things like clean sheets and what that means for you, and it's interesting how everyday things can have a real story behind them.
Well, a clean sheet is, you think of a clean sheet as you put something you put on a bed, but it's also a clean sheet when you take out a new piece of paper to write something. We talk about turning over a new leaf. It's a kind of a symbolic opportunity to get a fresh start in something. And I think that's a good thing to do, have a fresh start. Often we need to back up and start over on something that didn't work too well the first time.
Now, who do you read and who have been your influences? I know that you enjoy reading other essays.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do. And E.B. White's essays are classics. And I think he's dead now, but anyway, he's been a writer of some fame for some time. And there's a number of different little essays that he's written that I really cherish. I like Barbara Kingsolver's work. She's done some essays and some books. Those are the two that come to the top of my mind.
Well, what advice would you give to others, especially senior citizens, who think they may have some knack for writing and certainly have some stories to tell?
Carry a little notebook around with them, little scraps of paper in your pocket, in your purse, so you have something to write. Jot a note down on wherever you are, and then just set aside a time once a day or once a week and write. It doesn't matter whether it's exactly what you wanted to say or not. Every textbook you ever look at about learning to write says write. Just sit down and write.
Just do it. Thanks so much for being with us. We've been talking with Joan Creager. Her book is Life in a Slower Lane. It's available at www.slowerlane.com. For Take Note, I'm Patty Satalia.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.